on, all you wonderful A-plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another Kamen Rider Calibur review. Although I'm not gonna lie, this is gonna be another really short review because I think about 80% of the episode was pretty much just fight scene after fight scene, which again, some really cool fight scenes, but I'll get into that in just a minute. But I feel like the most that really happened in this episode was at the very beginning, and then, you know, we had a cool cliffhanger ending that I'll get into. But I'm definitely going to start with the very beginning part because I feel like that's where I'm just going to have like the most to really say about the episode. So yeah, we'll start there. And the very first scene isn't really a surprise. Basically, Calibur survived, which I feel like we all pretty much saw coming. I don't think there was a brief moment where anyone thought he was actually dead. But, you know, he's still alive. And so we cut to our riders who are all taking some time from their day to just kind of mourn the loss of their friend, Kento, who had, as you guys remember, had died in the previous episode. So now the writers are all kind of saying something about him, about how like each of them kind of blamed themselves in one way or another. But Rintaro tells them, you know, that if Kento was still around, he wouldn't want anyone to blame themselves, which is pretty accurate for the most part, because I mean, again, what happened to Rintaro was sad, but it was his own actions that caused it. And it's kind of like I said previously, I don't mean to sound cold about his death. Like, his death is sad, but it's just also that thing of it was kind of on him for doing this all by himself, which was again such a really dumb move on his part. But it is good that the other riders aren't blaming themselves for his death. They feel bad, they wish they could have saved it, but at least no one's like kind of feeling like it was their fault. So I did like that going into the beginning of the episode. But one other thing that I kind of, it's something I've always been kind of wondering with Kento, like something felt very familiar about him to me, and I couldn't say what it was until later in this episode. So this kind of happens in the middle of the episode, but I kind of want to talk about it now since we're talking about the mourning that the team is doing about Kento. And that's what his character reminds me of is one of my, in fact, I'd actually still say this is my all-time favorite anime, called Trigun. You have the main character, Vash the Stampede, and essentially his whole thing is that he's one of the goofiest badasses you'll ever see. He's always like essentially got a smile on, and he's always cracking really bad jokes. But it's a mask, essentially. He's always constantly in pain, always like emotionally scarred from the inside. And essentially the smile that he always wears with him in Trigun is there to essentially block himself from being as depressed as he could be, and to, you know, help everyone else around them feel stronger because they live in like kind of this really dystopian type world. Anyways, he's one of my favorite characters, and that's one of the things that I love about him. And that's what I realized Kento has been doing this entire time too. Kento, ever since he was a kid, believing that his father was the one that betrayed all the riders, has always been damaged inside, has always been emotionally scarred. But like for the beginning of the show, for like the first 10 episodes, he mostly just smiles all the time. He's mostly trying to be optimistic. He has his moments where whenever he's alone, he'll let that smile go and he'll, like, you know, not be trying to hide it from anyone. But for the most part, in the beginning, he was always smiling despite the true pain that he kept feeling on the inside. And yeah, just kind of realizing that in this episode, I realized that was why I really enjoyed Kento as a character. He reminded me a lot of Vash the Stampede in that way, and I really enjoyed, you know, it definitely made his death a lot more sad for me, but also helped me kind of rationalize his death too, and rationalize how we got there. By the way, Trigun is an amazing anime. If you guys have not seen it, definitely do so. It's 26 episodes, and it's really cool. So anyways, now that I've gotten all that out of the way, why I liked his character, unfortunately our characters can't mourn for too long because the flames that were surrounding the portal to the other dimension is now starting to fade, and the writers know that the main villains are going to be trying to jump into that book at any moment, so they all take off, except for Tensuro and Rintaro, who need to stay behind because they're trying to power up Rintaro's Wonder Ride books. Essentially, they're trying to give him the same really badass power-up that Toma had in the previous episode. And as the writers are all taken off, they each take a part of Kento's power-up, and they split it amongst themselves. And then what kind of follows is just an all-out brawl between the main writers and then the villains, including Calibur and all the other kind of villains that have been there since the very beginning. No monsters of the week, of course. This is just all-out brawl with all the main characters essentially all together. And the fight scenes are mixed in this episode. Like, usually they're so fast-paced that if there's any kind of like errors or any kind of really bad choreography, you don't tend to notice that much. But because some of the shots would go on for a while, you would start to notice some of the tiny mistakes a lot more. I'm sure these happen every episode, but I feel like maybe in previous episodes they had so many different angles that they would know exactly where to cut to, when to cut to it. But for this, I feel like maybe they had less angles to cut to, and therefore you're kind of left with a few moments where the bad choreography gets noticeable. It doesn't happen often, mind you, and this isn't me like saying it ruined the whole episode, and not at all. The fight scenes for the most part were still really good. It's just that it was a shame that there were some kind of noticeable moments of bad choreography, whether it be a character just attacking something that wasn't there, or it'd be like a character falling down even though nothing hit him. There were a couple moments of that, not often enough to ruin the actual fight scenes overall though. But essentially later on, the flames do finally fade between the portal, and Calibur does what he has done best this entire series. He retreats in order to escape into the other dimension, which holds the eternal truth. The writers try to go after him, but they are not only surrounded by the other villains, but they're also just straight up fatigued and just really they can only really defend themselves. They can't really put up that much more of a fight anymore. That is until Rintaro finally comes to save the day with his new power-up, which, by the way, his new power-up, much like Toma's in the previous episode, his power-up looks freaking amazing. So anyways, he takes them all down again easily, basically just like how Toma was able to completely wipe the floor with Calibur. Rintaro does the same thing with the other villains, and this gives Toma enough time to use the Calibur power-up, the King Calibur, I believe, kind of like the take on King Arthur, in order to follow Calibur into the portal that leads to eternal truth. And that's basically where our episode ends. Essentially, the book closes on both of them, and they are both trapped in the area that Calibur really wants to be, and Toma is trying to stop him from getting that eternal truth, because for all they know, it means the end of the world. At least that's their assumption. We still don't fully grasp what an eternal truth will fully mean, but I guess we'll have to wait to find out. But guys, this was a really fun episode. I can't really say it was that great. I feel like the best parts about it were at the very beginning with all the characters mourning Kento, especially just because I love the emotion throughout all of them. Each of them, again, bring some really great acting to this, and like going back to the previous episode, everyone kind of has a different reaction and is rationalizing his death in their own like way differently, and that's great, because that's just how life is. You know, when we lose someone, each of us mourns that loss completely different. It doesn't matter how well you knew that person, or, you know, just all these different factors. It's just we all rationalize it in our own ways, and that's what this show has done really good at in the previous episode and in this episode. So definitely great in that aspect. It's just that, you know, again, the rest of the episode did feel like it was just there to set up the next episode, which again led to some fun fight scenes, but it also, in terms of story, didn't really lead to that much overall. But guys, at the end of the day, those are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know in the comment below if you guys really enjoyed the fight scenes, if you even noticed any of these like kind of inconsistencies during the choreography. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, but most of all, guys, just remember to keep it A+.